Welcome to FujiNet for Commodore. If you followed the last video, we went ahead and wired up 6 wires onto this low-lin to make a nugget wired FujiNet for Commodore, but we didn't flash it, and we're going to do that now. And then we're going to try it out on the Commodore, and we're going to see what kind of things we can make it do. So I'm going to turn off the Commodore, of course, here. Now, what I do have is the USB cable from the low-lin is coming around to the USB on my MacBook. And you can use a Mac or you can use Windows. If you go to flash.meatloaf.cc, and this works in the Chrome browser on the Mac and probably on Windows as well. I didn't check that myself. You can go ahead and flash this right from this browser window. Now when you get here, you're going to see low-lin D32 Pro. If you wired it as I did, you don't want to do that one. You want to do the IEC Nugget. Now this is a project in transition per se. You know, they're still working on it. So the new wiring is considered IEC Nugget, which is what I did here. And then scroll down. I'm just going to go ahead and do a fresh install. If you were just updating later on, you can click just updating, but let's go back to fresh install. We're going to flash. Now, if you don't see your serial port here for the low-lin plugged in, you may need to hold the button down here on the board, as well as you might need to load a serial driver. And if you look at the GitHub information here, I'll have links in the description. There'll be some more explanation on that if you have trouble with that. Go ahead and connect. Let's install. Yes, install. And let's just go ahead and speed this up. It's done preparing the installation. It's now installing it. At this point, if it says it is installing it on your low-lin, then you're good. If it has trouble, times out, errors out, you're going to have to take a look on setting up the serial driver on your particular computer for this. Okay, that took a couple some odd minutes. Installation complete. Now you want to go keep it connected to your computer, your newer non-retro computer perhaps, and we want to look at logs and console. This is where you're going to see what this FujiNet for Commodore is doing as you're trying to work with it on the Commodore itself here. Now let's go ahead. I have this connected to the Commodore. We can go ahead and turn the Commodore on now. And you'll see some info here in the log. Boom, now we've got the ready display here on the Commodore. And I'm just gonna load, nope, actually I can't. Well, I can load the local FujiNet directory. You can see here it searched, it grabbed it, it loaded it here, and we can list. And I've got, this is what's on the FujiNet itself, and while I didn't plug in the SD card, we'll put that aside over here. That will show up here later. So let's go ahead and turn this off. And I'm actually gonna unplug this. I wanna get this in the case. So let's speak about that quickly. There's a couple 3D print files. If you have a 3D printer or you got somebody you can get this done with. This is the Meatloaf project 3D printed case. Not bad, I did that one in yellow. And then I did this one off of Thingiverse, and I gotta say I like this design better right here myself. I printed this one in the blue. I'm gonna put this in here. And I put a little turn here, little loop on the cable to give it a little bit of cable relief. Otherwise, I'll be pulling on all these solder points. Oh, the reason I didn't have this in the case to start with is the little button down here on the low-lin. You might need access to that as you're trying to get it going with the flash. Mine went fine this time, and so we're all good there. And now I'm going to plug in the SD card. Let's plug that power back in, which is also the data cable. And you want to make sure the cable you're using is a power cable and a data cable. If this isn't working over here, that's probably why you're having trouble. So we'll go back here If you want to get back to the console and the logs, just flash again, pick the proper port, connect, but don't install this time. Just click on log and console and you'll see we're there. I'll turn this on, boom. It has seen the Commodore turn on. And now we can go ahead and load that local directory again. It's loading it here, done, list it. And now you see we have the SD card. Now, the nice thing that Jamie, the programmer on here, did is if you load that program per se, because it's listed here, right, in the directory listing, FujiNet knows it's a folder and it will actually go into it and load in that folder. And of course, what we have in here is Qbert. Mrs. Vittner loves Qbert, so I try to get as many versions of that as I can. Now, the interesting thing here is if I plug the SD card into the computer directly, to put stuff on it, this Qbert.d64 is all lowercase on the SD card. The Commodore, early computers had iffy issues with lowercase, uppercase. So for this, everything you do in lowercase, and that will default to uppercase in the FujiNet when it lists out for you. And that brings us to setting up the network device or your Wi-Fi. If we go to the FujiNet Meatloaf at this point, directory on the Meatloaf server, there we go, it's going to load it. Which I'm actually quite surprised because it didn't, it flashed it, it didn't, I've had some trouble with this, which is why it took me a little longer to come out with this rendition of the video, or this video. There's some, the reason it's on the log that I'm watching is because sometimes there's issues in this development process that you get unexpected results. So you think it's doing one thing, but it's doing something else. If you're watching the logs, you can see what it's doing. Now, I was pretty sure that I had this set to Meatloaf over here, but which is the default Wi-Fi network name and password. So if you're setting this up for the first time, it's going to be Meatloaf for the SSID, the network name, lowercase, and then on your network LAN on your Wi-Fi router, lowercase Meatball, and it's going to be lowercase Meatball for the password. On the Commodore, it's going to be uppercase for both of those. So if you have, well, let me check this. If you check your Wi-Fi router, I'm going to take a look at mine for the devices. Yes. So I see Meatloaf right here on my device under my guest network, which I call Rush. Well, for today it's called Rush, the band, by the way. The Meatloaf is connected. And so in that case, I'll just go ahead and set up the network again just to show you. If you do open 1, 30, 15, set SSID, colon, and again, my network name is the word Rush, lowercase, but on the Commodore, we're going to put it in as the standard uppercase that the Commodore loves. And the password is Saratoga. But again, the password is all lowercase on my network for today, and we do uppercase on the Commodore. Now, just a side note, the reason it's Saratoga is that's the last city that I saw Rush play in before they retired, which was so sad. Okay, so we've put in that command. It's now going to attempt to connect to Rush, and of course it's going to because it was already working on Rush already. But you can see that is how you set the SSID if you didn't do your own firmware compiling. And again, if you just grab the firmware off of here, it should default to Meatloaf. But if not, go ahead and set up your own. And then it's working for me right here. If we load, let's see, the Meatloaf directory again. Searching, finding, loading, getting it for me over here. It's loading, it's done. Let's list it. There's the Meatloaf directory. Now, the reason I suggest you do this hooked up to the USB port and looking at the console logs as you do this is I have had delays when I set the SSID and password. I've had anywhere, one time was 30-second, and then a minute delay, and another time was 2.5-minute delay until it showed up on my network and that FujiNet was happy that it was connected. So it's good to watch this log to see what errors you may be getting or what delays you may be getting. But once you get there, then everything's cool. Additionally, if you go to the Meatloaf GitHub, and I'll put the link in the description, there's other things, of course, that the FujiNet for Commodore does. Again, if it sounds confusing, it's FujiNet for Commodore coming from the Meatloaf project, and Jamie over there is working hard to make it do all the FujiNet functionality, but also he's got his own project, Meatloaf. They cross paths pretty good. And if you go over to the GitHub, you'll see what else you can do here. You go ahead and load from other servers. You can run CPM. It acts as a printer, so you can print to it. Go ahead and connect the BBSs using the Wi-Fi modem in here. It's some pretty good stuff. I'm not going to go deep into there because once you got to here, you can go and check this stuff out and make your FujiNet for Commodore do a lot more. But the one fun thing I like is Jamie has programmed in some little fun tidbits to make this easier. And one fun thing is if you load from the Meatloaf server, and again, the FujiNet is taking a look at this command and dissecting it out to go directly to the Meatloaf server, so you don't have to wonder where it's at. And if we go to arcade, but with an asterisk, we're going to load arcade asterisk, and the FujiNet will grab the directory of the arcade folder on here on the Meatloaf server and select a random game. So it's kind of, if you're not sure what to do, just go ahead and load a random game from the arcade. Let's see what we get. I'll go back to the logs over here. Yep, so we can see that it's loading here. How long that takes, I don't know. Let's go ahead and speed this up. Oh, well, so you can see this has stopped loading, but I'm imagining now it's having the buffer. The FujiNet has that in there. It needs to buffer it to the IEC port. A little bit slower than the internet nowadays. We'll give it a few more seconds here. Well, heck, what are we going to do? We're going to give it all the seconds it wants. We're at its mercy here. And there we go. Now it's loaded. Go ahead and type run. What do we got? What do we got? Is it going to be Qbert? Galaga. Oh, cool. Cool. I like Galaga. Got my joystick here. I probably wouldn't have picked Galaga to start with here. But I'm glad it did it. Nope. I should have got those. I don't think I've played the Commodore version of Galaga. It's pretty good. Joystick slipped. That's my excuse. Okay. Well, cool. Well, go ahead, flash your FujiNet for Commodore. If you didn't put one together, go back to my previous video about soldering one up. Load up the firmware and give it a try. And this should be posted a few days before VCF Midwest in Illinois there. So I know that FujiNet, Thomas Cherry Holmes, and Jamie with Meatloaf Project, and Moswald and some others will be at VCF Midwest. So definitely, if this is interesting to you, check out the FujiNet booth at VCF Midwest in Chicago, beginning of September 2024. That's where we're at as I'm doing this. And perhaps I'll see you at the show. Mrs. Vittner and I will be there as well. So thanks for watching another video, and looking forward to doing the next one. I'm working on some Atari stuff. So ciao.